Harriet. This is part of what I'm doing now is it's Oscar season, January 1st. Welcome, Happy New Year. And I wanted to get some reviews out of some films that have previously been nominated for Oscars that I don't have reviews of, but they have audio description. Hopefully they all have audio description. I don't know. I may run out of films. You know how audio description is at some point I will have reviewed everything that has audio description at this point at the rate I'm going. Um, but yeah, so I wanted to just have fun and talk about some Oscar movies and were they good? Is the audio description good? Did they deserve their nominations? What did we get here? And I'm starting with Harriet. I've always wanted to see this. It was on Netflix, and Netflix actually had it really easy for me. I didn't have to. My queue at Netflix is long. Listen, if you were in the 200 plus range of the Netflix queue, I'm sorry. I may not ever find you. um, but Harriet was like 10th. So I was like, oh, Harriet, let's do that. Because Cynthia Erivo managed the Best Actress nomination. This film also had a banger song and Best Original Song, so it ended up being a dual nominee. But this was also the year of Oscar So White, where she was the only Black nominee out of 19 acting candidates. She was the only one. So this was the hashtag year. Um, yeah, it's a well-earned performance from her though, and you would think she's the only person in the film. She's not. This film is oddly feels more ensemble-y than perhaps it needs to be. Um, I would actually kind of preferred more, a little bit more focus in on certain characters and a little bit of a reduction of the cast. Uh, yeah. So at the beginning, I'm really interested in the plot and the structure of introducing us to who Harriet Tubman was, the slave that she was. She was married to a freed black man in the South, um, which just to me is like amazing that he was like walking around as a free black man. I just profound. I think of like how somebody went and like kidnapped Solomon Northup, and we had like 12 years a slave, and that dude was like up in the north, and this guy's just like walking around the South. I'm like, that just happened. Like they just people were just like, yeah, he's free now, and he stayed in the South. Like what? Why are you still there? Run to go up north. You're surrounded by people who hate you. Um, but he was staying for her and trying to get her to, you know, be free. And unfortunately, her owner is well an asshole because slave owners are assholes. It's pretty much a recurring theme in any movie about slavery. Um, and one day, uh, she tries to present a situation. She ends up running out into the woods, and she ends up basically kind of making a plea to God. And then, oddly enough, the next day, her I hate to say her master. That feels so terrible, but within the context of this film, I have to use terms like that because generations before me used to be filled with dumbasses. Anyway, yeah, so she wishes that her master be struck down, and basically he is. Uh, then the son becomes in charge, and he ain't any better, and he's also a lot younger, so the likelihood of him, I don't know, stroking out or anything is just like way lower. Um, and basically she runs. She just decides she can't be there. He's trying to sell her because he actually does believe he kind of saw her making that wish, and he thinks she's got some sort of like special weird magic voodoo. And he doesn't feel comfortable with her being on the farm and wants to get her out of there. So she ends up escaping, getting up north. where they have her. It takes a while. I'm making it sound a lot quicker. We're rushing through the plot of if you don't know the story of Harriet Tubman, there are books, also high school. So you had a lot of time to learn about Harriet Tubman. She's on a fucking stamp. So if you don't know about Harriet Tubman, it's not my job to teach you who Harriet Tubman is, nor is it this film's. Um, it can only do just so much with the runtime that it has. So she gets up north, where she changes her name. She picks Harriet after her mom, and Tubman after her husband, and has a new name. And she's helped out by a guy played by Leslie Odom Jr. Um, and she goes and stays at a place that at first I was like, normally I was a little concerned. I'm gonna be honest. Like Leslie Odom Jr. didn't strike me as being the most genuine person on the face of the planet. There's a scene in the audio description where it actually lets us know that he wrote down possible brain damage for Harriet, and I was like, oh no, is he going to turn out to be an asshole? Are black people in this film going to be assholes too? And then he walks her across the street to a boarding house that is only black women, and I was like, if this is a brothel, I swear to God. And it's owned and operated by a woman who was born a free black woman. And so Janelle Monáe owns and runs this boarding house for black women, and it turns out to just be a boarding house and not a brothel. And I was like, thank God. Thank God. If this is a brothel, I swear to God. I swear. It's just like, this movie's too much. I was like, if it turns out that Leslie Odom Jr. and Janelle Monáe are both assholes in this film as well, we got problems. But eventually, obviously, Harriet does what she does, and she's like, I gotta go back. I can't just be up here. I don't feel comfortable just being up here. I can't rest. I have to go back and get my people. So that's when she starts the Underground Railroad, and she goes back and gets some of her people out. And a lot of people use the term Moses to describe her because she's, leading people to the promised land. And things happen to her, and I don't want to get too spoilery, but I just spoilery about the life of Harriet Tubman. But I mean, there are like really like specific little details. I don't know, like unless you did a deep dive into the life of Harriet Tubman or read a book about her, that I think you might be surprised by some of the developments in her life, but maybe not necessarily all of them. I also don't know that this film is like 100% factual on like literally everything. Sometimes we like to fictionalize things and dramatize them for the sake of entertainment purposes. It's weird to call this film entertainment because it's not really entertainment, because it's if you get entertained by slavery, then seek counseling. It's inspirational because it's about people getting out of slavery. Entertaining is a strong word. I would say it's a strong word to describe this film. Important in many ways is fine. Art, we can always call film art. There are many things to call this film, but entertaining. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to see. To put the suffering of black people on screen and be like, this is entertainment. I'm entertained. I just, you know, that's a lot for me. There are heroes and villains in this. The film does try to make it more ensemble to where you feel like there are other characters. Like I mentioned, Leslie Odom Jr. and Janelle Monáe both have quite a bit to do. So does Joe Alwyn, who plays the son of the deceased slave owner who's now trying to like contain what his father's legacy was, and also fight the fact that somebody keeps stealing his slaves. And getting away with it and hiding out, and then they take slaves from other neighboring farms, and then everybody blames him because they figured out the fact that Moses came from his farm, so, and that it's his fault. So they want their price. Yeah, get it. White people turning on white people. So this film is fine. Uh, it's it's one of many uh, films about black suffering during a time period. I don't want to say stop making these films because I'm white, and if you want to keep making these films, fine. As long as it's the people, as long as the people making them are not people like me. Like I would never sit there as a studio head and be like, you know what we need more of? Slave movies. I need more black suffering, please, on camera. I think what's really interesting is that I also watched American Fiction this year, and even though my review's not out, it's coming, and it talks a lot about the expectation of black artists to make black um, what we think of as being representational black films and books and all that kind of stuff and this is something where I feel like it is a story that can be told, but it needs to be told by the right people, black people, not white filmmakers, um, because of the nature of the story. It's theirs to tell. I don't expect them necessarily to be creating that art, but at the same time, I also would be deeply concerned if, like, Baz Luhrmann made, if he came over here and was like, you know what, guys, I'm gonna make Roots. Be like, Baz Luhrmann's Roots. Okay, that's bizarre and uncomfortable, and I don't want it. So, you know. Um, Greta Gerwig's Harriet. I just there's just certain things where it's just like maybe it'll be fine, but I'm gonna pass on that. Um, the only things about this film that I'll say again as a white man, as a blind film critic, white man, I there were characters. It almost got too much ensemble. There were characters that were introduced, and like she cared about them, and that's how we were supposed to care about them. I think it was expecting a lot for us to care of all of the extraneous family members. Obviously, she was going out for people. For example, she goes out for her mother, Rhett, and it's kind of a harrowing sequence. But I did not know Rhett well enough to care. I mean, I care about like all individuals in general, and I obviously want everybody to escape slavery. But the emotional connection in that moment is not as great because you don't know who that is. Um, we don't know her well enough. She's not been established well enough as a character for that to have necessarily the emotional resonance that it should have. So, in some ways, this feels like a biopic for Harriet Tubman that has been given a maximum runtime, and it has to go from like start to finish, and then leave us with sort of like a text scroll at the end of how she went on to do other things. I think that part of her life is interesting too. I would have rather seen chunks. I would have rather seen this film broken up and see her operating instead of this being just like an Underground Railroad film. Um, she did go on to do other things like work with the women's suffrage movement. So that's not even explored here. It's literally mentioned in like the credits. And I don't know. I feel like there's more to her than the story. It's like this felt like the story that was being sold to us, like throughout all of high school. Like we learned about the Railroad, and we learned about Harry Tubman. So why not make a movie about it? But sometimes the biopic, you have the opportunity to tell a different story. Um, Thinking about earlier this year, seeing Priscilla, that is absolutely not a typical biopic. And if you thought you were going to watch a typical biopic about Priscilla Presley, you were wrong. So, but that's a way of taking a character and showing us something we may not have known. This just feels like a History Channel adaptation of something that most of us should have known if we paid attention in high school. with some fleshed out side characters that aren't necessarily mentioned because you're learning about Harriet Tubman, not like Harriet Tubman and friends, and and the lady who runs the boarding house, or it's just yeah, it feels a little bit less like that. So it's not quite as impactful. I was not as shocked as I was as some other films that had me. 12 Years a Slave is still just uh, I, I refuse to call these films entertaining, but 12 Years a Slave is takes my breath away. Is the best way to say that. Um, and I think it's the concept of the fact that somebody did go and take somebody who like away from their family and everything, and somebody who was free and just stole them and just pretended that they were somebody else and just was like, you're a slave now, and that was happening, that kind of thing happened, which is why it makes it so weird that this guy's just like walking around the South, and I'm like, how did those two things exist in the same time period? How are there people running around trying to capture free black people and make them slaves, and then this guy is free black in the South, and nobody's just captured him and just sent him a little further south? Very weird. But I guess it's a true story and this is how it has to be. But uh, that's it. Anyway, that song is still a banger song. I still loved hearing it in the credits. Cynthia Erivo's performance is fantastic. And when I say still love, yes, this is my first time watching Harriet. I've not seen the film, but I've heard that song before. So that's what I mean by still. Like, I think it was like performed at the Oscars and everything. But yeah, it's still a great song. So should she have gotten the Oscar for this? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't feel the need. I feel like this is a striking out into the world performance and being like, "Hi, I'm Cynthia Erivo. Give me more films." But I think the film kind of fails her by not being willing to go deeper into the life of Harriet Tubman. Audio description was kind of boring. I'm gonna be kind of honest. The narration was kind of flat. I think it described things well, but it was a little dronish to me. I don't know who the narrator was because Netflix wanted to know my opinion, and then when I tried to get out of the opinion screen, it ended up just exiting me out of the whole damn movie. And I was just like, God damn it. Why do you need to know my opinion about all these movies? Like, stop adding features that prevent me from being able to get to the end of the credits. Anyway, but now for a grade. I'm going to give Harriet B+. I do think it's a strong film, but I think it's a little bit short of perfect. So check it out. See for yourself if you haven't. Anyway, I hope to tackle some more films like this as Oscar season. I haven't seen every single Oscar movie ever, so this is gonna be me. If I have to start doing films that I have seen because they're an audience, then I may start doing some films I have seen. We'll see. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. And as always, you can go to my website, macthemovieguy.com. You can follow me on X or Instagram at macthemovieguy. You can go to the audio description project, adp.acb.org, to let you know what is audio description, where you can watch it. And you can go to the ADNA.org. That's the ADNA.org. It'll let you know who's narrating your favorite films, television series. That's it for me today. I'll watch something else and see you guys on the other side.